goodness.
Here tonight, and tonight I have with me Richard King, who's a broadcaster at our local radio station, 2HD. Just thought I'd give him a plug there.
Thank you.
So,
where's the couch? It's supposed to be
well,
on the couch with Kelly, and I'm expecting a big couch.
Well, we've actually got a bar tonight, and we're filming from Lotus Fashion tonight because, we couldn't get the couch in time and things happen and whatever. So we're one for improvising and, one for having it raw and ready, right?
Goody.
So this is where we're at. So we're at Lotus Fashion in 71 Beaumont Street, Hamilton, New South Wales, Australia. Just for my, international guests there.
You've got some lovely frocks here, Kelly.
I'm not here to sell you a frock, Richard.
Go, you artist.
So, what we're going to talk about, though, with you, Richard, is, there's a lot of viewers out there that are actually living through cancer themselves. So we're going to touch on the cancer thing for you and what it did for your life. And, hopefully we'll be able to talk about it in respect to others that are maybe going through a similar situation and, just don't know how to deal with it, perhaps. And obviously, too, a lot of men out there that are living through cancer right now and, trying to do that macho thing where, that's got to wear off sooner or later, right? When you're dealing with cancer. You've got to...
Yes. I mean, you've got to have a strength,
yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be, that sort of strength.
Yeah. So let's start, getting to know a little bit about you, Richard. So, children. No, we won't get too personal.
Got four.
Four, two. I didn't know
children.
that.
Two are married.
Yeah.
Got 2 grandchildren. Actually, since I was diagnosed with cancer, I've become a grandfather twice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
there's a beauty in that, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
So, for you, let's talk about how it all started.
2014, late 2014, lump in my neck which I thought was an infected tooth. But being a stupid bloke, I let it go for a long time before I did anything about it. Went to my doctor.
So you're saying let it go for a long time. How long is that?
Oh, probably a couple of months.
Yeah.
It had actually
so did it
started,
just get bigger and bigger, this lump?
It was like a golf ball in my neck. But as a child, I'd always been glandy.
Yeah.
Glands come
so
up
that
all
made
the time.
up for it, you think? Yeah.
Well, I thought this could be just, being, an allergic reaction or something or other, or glandy. But I thought it was an infected tooth. Went to my doctor. He kicked me up the backside and said, you shouldn't leave things like that. Get to the dentist. Went to the dentist. They did x-rays. They weren't sure. They then sent me to an endodontist, better imaging apparently. He wasn't sure, and he sent me to a maxillofacial surgeon who got a whole lot of tests done and needle biopsies. As a result of that, I ended up at the head and neck clinic, up at the Mater Hospital. I had a lot more biopsies. I had one surgically removed. I had lots of scans. Then I had a PET scan. They were thinking it was some sort of head and neck cancer. Had a PET scan, and the result of that was a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma diagnosis, and that I
can't even say that. Now, what is it again?
Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, blood cancer.
Right.
One of them.
Blood cancer.
My father had died of leukemia when I was very young. I was only 4.5.
Wow.
But as to whether or not there's any sort of genetic predisposition or whatever to the blood cancer.
So it's not related to the same...
Well, I think the jury's still out on that.
Yeah.
And I was given initially, and this was about 8 months after I initially went to the doctor about this lump. It took about 8 months to get the diagnosis, and that was pretty stressful. Originally, I thought, okay, something wrong here, but you go to the doctor and
Were
you
you
go...
unwell? Did you feel unwell with it?
No, I felt okay.
That's the horrible part of it.
But I was starting to get a bit...
Worried,
I was, because they kept telling me something wrong. You're a bit of a mystery, something wrong, we just don't know what it is.
Even though you've got this lump hanging off your neck.
Better to know what it is, even if it's... Because at least you can start thinking about how you're going to cope with it, or whatever. So indolent low grade was the original diagnosis. Indolent low grade lymphoma, and I was on a watch and wait, no treatment.
So no treatment at all?
No treatment at all.
To you, is that like going to a checkup, like a doctor's checkup, so often and just
I didn't have to go back to see him for, I can't remember now, the initial one. Might have been 12 months. But on the proviso, if you feel unwell, whatever, whoosh, get back up to the martyrs straight away. And to be quite honest, I don't know that I thought about it too much. I don't know whether that was deliberate or just unconsciously I didn't really think about it. I was given a cancer diagnosis, but I think I only heard what I wanted to hear, which was indolent low grade. It might stay that way for quite a while. It might stay that way for 6 months. It might stay that way for 10 years. It might stay that way indefinitely, although apparently that's unlikely for it to always stay indolent low grade.
So it's to do with the lymph nodes. Is that kind of like this?
Look, I don't understand the science, but you get spontaneous mutations, and these things can float around all over, but they like your lymph nodes, your lymph glands,
okay,
so they
right.
park them. And what I didn't realise, we've got hundreds of them, so these things can park in...
Any of them?
And if they congregate there and start multiplying, they clog up your system. So your whole lymphatic system can grind to a halt. Nothing functions. They block it up. And it's the filter for the blood where it goes through all the lymph nodes. Anyway, didn't think about it too much, and then probably about 12 months later, a bit less than 12 months, I woke up one morning with a pain, but in a really specific spot. You know how you feel, you're sort of aware of your body when you get old?
Well, you think, I mean, yeah, because there's so many things going on
You know
with it
where all the
time.
aches and pains are.
I'm aware of all that.
But when one pops up that, that's
It's not your regular little pain, but you
No.
know that it's not good.
And it wasn't like a tummy ache all over the place.
Yeah.
It was in a really specific spot. I get up at 10 to 3. I've got up and it backed off sort of as I went to work, and I didn't notice. Next morning, it had upped the ante a bit, and I was much more aware of it. Wednesday morning, it was that much more again. And
in
I
the
thought,
same spot.
Same spot, but it was noticeably more, and I was waking up a little bit earlier each time before the alarm, feeling really uncomfortable. On Wednesday I thought, no, this is not right, and I organised to be covered at work and went straight up to the Mater at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and they did a CT scan and the lymph nodes were swollen, and anyway, as a result of that I was booked in for a PET scan, and the PET scan showed it had gone from indolent low grade to rapid aggressive. And there were
So how long's that over
That was 12
time?
months later.
Okay.
12 months later.
Yeah.
And I was lucky because Phil Rawlings, who's the professor of haematology up
good
at the
on you,
Mater,
Phil. Thank you, Phil.
He mightn't be everybody's sort of cup of tea, but I really...
He's
I think
very
he's
good
great.
at what he does, and that's all you want when you're in that situation.
And he's very black and white.
Yeah.
And he's super busy, very busy man. Anyway, he said, no, this is a different animal. It's gone from indolent low grade. Apparently it is. It's a different disease when it goes rapid aggressive, and it was all over the place. But he said, you're lucky because one of them's obviously pressing on a nerve or something, which is causing that pain. But in the end, I couldn't sleep lying down. I was sleeping for a couple of weeks in a chair.
Wow.
As soon as I lay down, in fact, when they did the PET scan, because it takes 18 minutes, I really struggled to lie down for that 18 minutes. It was that uncomfortable. Anyway, he put me onto oral chemo that day, and he said, you'll probably notice an effect within 4 hours. And I thought, wow, that's very, not tomorrow or next day, but within 4 hours. And he said it'll shrink them. Sure enough, it was almost exactly 4 hours.
How did you go with the chemo? Did that kind
Well,
of
that was only a temporary thing until they. Anyway, then you have to do all these tests and heart things and whatever, and then I started the chemo. It was 6 months, eight. It was every 3 weeks, 8 sessions every 3 weeks. Lost my hair.
So how did you feel like being? I know it's hard for a female, but
I kept working.
So you kept going. Well,
I had a week off after each round, so it was a 3-week cycle for 6 months. I had a week off. Work was great. I had a week off, then worked for 2 weeks, then I had a week off and worked for 2 weeks.
So that was okay. You could get people in to cover you.
Yes, yeah.
You know, not the same Richard King morning show. You know, we all know that. But I mean, you're saying like, you lost your hair. Like, how did you cope with that being, a male? Like I'm saying, it doesn't matter if it's a female or a male, but I know I've interviewed a lot of females that have gone through it and they've lost their hair, and they said that was the hardest thing for them to actually cope with.
Yeah, I can't understand what it's obviously like for a woman, but it's obviously very different. Because it was winter, the thing that annoyed me, all the headgear and stuff is designed for you girls. They're bugger all made for us blokes, and I can't stand synthetics.
Yeah.
And I didn't want wool, and I was after cotton, and actually they made them. They started making them up at the Mater.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. Well, I rang the council, and I was getting them online from a mob in the US. So I've got a few chemo caps because it was bloody cold.
Yeah,
it gets cold.
And
They're like babies.
That's the thing.
They lose
isn't
all
it?
the heat from the.
But I mean, it wouldn't have bothered you at work because it's radio, so no one sees you.
No,
so
and probably there was that little bit of. You attract a bit of attention because you look odd. People look at you that haven't seen you for a while and they think, is that him? Is that,
and he's got a hat on. I've never known Richard to have a hat on.
Well, or I was just walking around bald.
Yeah. But that's kind of trendy, men shaving their heads, but not in the middle of winter. Yeah. Like, that's just something that you don't do. So, I mean...
But it grew back. And a few
thick.
people... And it's natural colour. It's natural colour. And a few...
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm just having
a look. Have a look.
Oh my goodness, it's so thick.
And it's probably come back darker, if anything.
Wow. Because I've had a lot of women that have said to me when they've had, and only women because I've been interviewing them with breast cancer, that they've said that when their hair grew back, it was so much thicker and curly. Did yours go curly?
It was initially it was sort of a bit curly, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it, how that happens?
Apparently it can come back a different colour.
Wow.
Might come back red like yours, Kelly.
Need one hair like mine, seriously.
Scary.
What do you mean that'd be scary? I don't find this scary, do you? Come on, viewers.
With red hair.
No, come on, a bit of honesty here. No, and I mean, like, you're really jovial when we're talking about this, but I guess, there were times, like, you got down.
Well, I live on my
low.
own, and the first few weeks I really struggled. Didn't want to be my own self. Family have been fantastic. My ex-Anne, we're good friends. She was terrific. But particularly those first few weeks, because I was right out of my comfort zone.
And you've got no control
and I wasn't
over
sure
it
how to. Well, and I was, I was somewhere I'd never been before, and I would ring, sort of thing I never do. Ringing people for a bit of a chat. I just don't do that. But I was doing that because I wanted to talk to people, and I didn't want to be by myself. So that was tricky.
So you're in that dark place, like, and living on your own.
Well, but I was still working. It was probably hardest in that after the first couple of rounds of chemo, that first week where I was off, and also too, I was on a very high dose of prednisone that I was taking orally for a week after each.
What does the prednisone do?
Oh, it's a steroid. You're like the Energizer Bunny.
Oh, really?
It's a really high dose. So I was really tired because the chemo makes you tired, and the further into it you get, and this is over 6 months, the further into it, it's a cumulative thing. You get really tired. So you're tired, but this prednisone's got you. So you sleep for a couple of hours and you're awake, and you feel like the Energizer Bunny. And then you tailed off. It was 100 mil and then 75, 50, 25 every week. And then you get back into a sort of a normal pattern for towards the end of the 3 weeks, and then bingo, you're back into it again. And
so that was like every 3 weeks you had.
Every 3 weeks I had the chemo.
For how long was it?
There were 8 rounds. I'd go up to the day treatment centre at Mater, where they are fantastic.
They are.
All of the staff up at the Mater and the volunteers, I was going to say of course you can find fault in everything, but I've been up there a lot in the last few years. I was up there again today. They're really fantastic. They do a really
don't they?
job.
And I mean, I've been there quite a few times, and I've expressed to them like how important beautiful people like that are to the person that's sitting there having the treatment, because they've got such wonderful attitudes, and they're just there to, you know, I can't say serve, but they're there to look after you and to make sure that your experience isn't, you know, as bad as you think it could be. You know, they're there to make sure that, well, they're there just to help you and to make that experience, you know, as okay as they can get it for you, you know, and nothing's too much trouble for them.
It used to blow me away, talking particularly some of the younger nurses in the day treatment centre. And initially, the first few rounds, I was up there for 8 hours, and that tailed down to 6, 5. I have to go for immunotherapy every 2 months, and I'm up there for about 4 hours. Stick the cannula in. And some of the people, you know, a lot of very sick people, really sick people, a lot of people that die, you know, that don't get through it all. But the young nurses, you know, a lot of them, you know, I was always interested as to why they wanted to work in you know, where there's a lot of really sick people, but they loved it and loved oncology. And you've got to, you know, if you work, imagine working in palliative care.
Oh, it'd just be horrible, I think.
Well, you've got to be very special sort of a person. But I really think the people up there are terrific, and it does have a big impact on the way you. I think it does, you know, it can enhance your treatment and whatever if there's a nice atmosphere, and there is up there.
And I think, you know, like you're there for so long, you're there for a whole day basically, aren't you?
Yeah.
Just sitting in the
Their
same...
sandwiches are bloody awful.
Okay, let's look at doing something about the sandwiches. Hopefully someone's watching that works in the kitchen. Maybe we can do a little bit of zapping them up a little bit.
No,
but you know, like it's a long process to be sitting there. And I guess too, whilst you're sitting there, you know, it's like your thinking time. You're thinking about, you know, lots of stuff. Did you ever think to yourself that you're just not going to make it?
No.
That's fantastic. You've got such a positive attitude.
Well, but it's probably because, you know, I know it's so dangerous to dwell on that, you know, it can really suck you in. I tend to be a naturally positive person.
God, you've got a squeaky chair.
Yeah, sorry about that.
People are going to be writing up little things about the noise barrier or something, but it's these chairs.
But I think I am a naturally positive person, and I'm living by myself. So, and the other thing is too, you don't want to be around people who are a negative vibe, and I know that sounds awful, but people who are, you know, if you're a sad sack, it's better to be around positive people.
Well, you don't kind of like. Well, I feel that if you're not positive, you're not attracting, you know, beautiful, positive people. Like you could be very negative in a sense, and you find
that's not to say that, you know. Yeah, sure, I get the shits and I'll get the misery guts and all that sort of thing every now and then, but I know I can't stay there. You know, you've got to get yourself out of it. And I suppose the cancer thing. I mean, it came back for me last year. I was all clear and in remission. It bounced back, but they seemed to shrink and.
So the same form of cancer.
Yeah, lymphoma. Yep. That's the trouble with the blood cancers. They can still be sneaking around all over the place. That's what this immunotherapy is about, to hopefully knock them all out and at least keep it at bay.
How did you feel when they told you it was back? Like, what, did you get ill, or did they just pick it up when you've gone on your routine check?
I had another scan, PET scan, and it picked it up. No, I felt fine. I didn't feel. They're stealth bombers.
Yeah.
No, I felt fine. But since then, I've started on this immunotherapy, which is every 2 months for 2 years. I had a scan late last year, all gone, so back in remission.
Fantastic. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
Like, and I guess too, you've got to think about, you know, how important it is to embrace what you've got. Like, you know,
Every
not
day's
to-
a good one. I know it sounds corny and cliched, but
But hey, that's what life's about, isn't it? You know, getting up every day.
I think I'm a better person. I know it's a stupid thing to say, but
No, I don't think it's stupid at all, because I hear that a lot from people that have said that when they've gone through a certain situation and, you know, that they come out the other side and they go, you know what, that has made me a better person because I now am thinking of other people and I'm thinking differently about doing what I do for other people. Like nothing is a chore for me to do things for people. You know, I feel like I want to do it because I'm here and alive and I feel fantastic and I want to share that joy, you know, by doing something nice for someone. So
you can come and vacuum my place if you like, Kelly.
I don't even vacuum
I was just
my
thinking
own.
about chores. You talk about chores and thinking about all the things I've been putting off.
But I mean, like you said, you know, you're feeling, you feel like you're a better person, but what do you mean by that? Like, what do you seriously mean by that?
I'm probably more tolerant. I'm probably more patient. I'm aware of the negative impact that stress has and, you know, being angry has, and it's not good to stay angry. It's not good to stress and tension. I can feel that now. I'm very aware of that because I can feel the negative impact it has. And I can feel that in other people, and I tend to try and stay away from people who are a bit too uptight and a bit, you know, wound up like a spring. I can feel that, and I can feel it has a negative impact. But look, today, I was telling you before, I went up to the Mater Hospital and they asked me if I could talk to they have a group up there, a support group for people with head and neck cancers, and I think the research says that the side effect for the treatment for head and neck cancers is the worst of the lot, and some of the stories they were telling up there were just amazing. But these people, you know, some of them can't swallow, some of them haven't eaten anything by mouth for 8 years. It's all pureed and sort of injected in, and yet they're, you know, and there was a guy up there that said he'd just come through 8 years of dwelling on getting the shits, thinking about all the things he couldn't do. He's now thinking about the things that he can do, and he said it was a real catharsis and a turning point. And there was another chap there that said, he said, look, you know, a lot of people with cancer, you know, take the attitude that they're dying with cancer. He said, well, you're living with cancer.
That's a great thing to hear, isn't it?
It is a great thing to hear, and you can, you know, it's like a lot of things, and you don't know what tomorrow holds. You know, tomorrow anything can happen.
What do you what do you do for you if you get to that stage where you're feeling a bit down about it, or you know,
Can
like
we talk about these things?
we don't want any demonstrations on air. We're
Somebody
live.
was telling me, Kim, who I work with on here, said this research in the UK says that the more sex you have after 50 is good for your memory.
Really?
Yeah, apparently.
Wow, is that why I've got such a shocking memory?
Well, I blame chemo.
What was your name again?
Yeah, I blame chemo for everything now, you know.
We
Forget
can.
somebody's birthday, oh, it's chemo. I'm blaming chemo for everything.
So if you're in that, you know, like if you're in that zone, and I shouldn't think that you probably do get in that zone very much, but, you know, like when you get to that low, you must get to a very low
No, I don't think I do. I don't think I do. And look, they were saying up there at this group today, there are always people. There was a guy up there, the guy that has just come out of the 8 years of horror, and he had a prosthetic face. And you couldn't tell, but it was his nose, the upper part of his mouth, the eye socket. It was attached to his glasses, and you couldn't really tell. But you take it off, and he was like something out of a horror film. It was half. But, you know, and he was a great guy to talk to. He was super positive. He'd come out of 8 years of, you know, hell, but...
You've got to take inspiration from people like that, really, haven't you? Like, in life.
And people that, you look at them and think are perfect normal. They haven't had anything by mouth, fluid, anything, for 8 years. Imagine that.
I can't.
I love
imagine
food.
It. Oh, me too. I just love it. I love
This
the
guy
texture,
said
and you know, and you just go to yourself, oh, you know, I could not imagine having to spend my life not putting that food in my mouth and having that sensation, like, and because like you said, everything is pureed and
But he said he still pours a few beers in. True story.
Oh, that's amazing, isn't it? I guess if you've gone through that in life, I mean, surely to goodness, you could, indulge in something like that and have a couple of beers. Like, really?
Exactly.
You have to have some beauty somewhere in life, haven't you?
Yes, indeed.
You know?
All things in moderation.
Yeah, well, they say that, but I haven't quite got that thing sorted out just yet. I just don't know where the moderation...
Look at all these dresses.
I know.
You can't wear them all, Kelly.
I know, it's like my wardrobe. Seriously, this
I
is
thought
like
this
my...
was your wardrobe.
Well, there's lots of clothes here, and there's lots of clothes in my
Sure is.
wardrobe. But when you've got a shop, you got to wear the clothes to sell them. True.
Oh, too right.
And then when you model. So, okay. Each and every week, when I have a guest on my show, I ask them to think about the fact that there's someone maybe on the other end of that computer. They're watching Facebook on their computer or their iPad or their phone, and perhaps they're either living through it, they might have just started treatment, they're living through a similar situation as you, or they know of someone or someone dear to them's going through it. So I ask my guests to, give them a positive or a message of hope. So what would your message be to someone out there?
Oh, gosh.
Like, just something,
Look, this might sound a bit corny, but I remember years ago when I was working at 2KO and we had the psychologist in for this workshop for 3 days. And the two things I got out of that were never assume malice, that somebody's got it in for you or whatever. And what you see depends on where you stand. And I've always stuck with those things, particularly in the workplace. If people start thinking, oh, the bitch, she's got it in for me, or whatever else. And the other thing about, easier said than done, if things look horrible, stand somewhere else and try and look at it from a different perspective.
That's fantastic. I like that.
Well, what you see depends on where you stand, and it's so true. So when things look horrible, and when stand somewhere else and look at it differently. Easier said than done. Sometimes it's impossible to do, but it's amazing. You can do it, and that's really helped me. I've always, and certainly in the last, this started 2014, it's now 2018, I use that a lot. What you see depends on where you stand. But look, if what I'm seeing is horrible, try and stand somewhere else so you see it differently.
That's a great message.
Well, I don't know if it is, but...
Well, it is. It is a very good message. I mean, because it meant something to you, and it's great that you can share it with us. That's the thing, and we can share it with someone out there, and maybe those words...
Because there's always... You can always make it look better.
Well, that's true, isn't it?
And it's in there. Things can be horrible, but they can also be fantastic if you just look at them through different eyes.
Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for coming on the show too.
Thanks for the invite.
Giving us your perspective of
I was
life
expecting
in
bubbles or something.
Why? Because we're at the bar.
Yeah.
Well, that's late. That's after hours. So
thanks for the invite.
That's quite okay. So thank you. And tonight, I want to say thank you to the people that support me each and every week. And some of these people I'd like to mention, each and every week. If I don't say your name, please, I'll say it the week after or whatever. I mean, there's so many of you. And, thank you for supporting me, because without you supporting me, I wouldn't be going and doing what I'm doing. So I'd like to say thank you to Grace Stefanoulis. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that correctly. Amber Jane Sterling, Cheryl Cleaves, Gary Bentley. Can't see the name because your finger's over the name. Kim Price. Thank you, my little producer, Tiana. Lee Trimble, Beck Cassidy, thank you, Beck. Wayne Lennon, thank you so much, Wayne. Sylvia Lang, thank you. Sylvia was on last week, and if you didn't get her show, you need to catch up on that and just have a look at the show, and also look at Craig Campbell, because Craig Campbell is Sylvia's son, so you'll get the whole story from the very beginning. It's quite extraordinary. So thank you, Sylvia, for supporting me and my dream. Thank you, Kimmy Young. Every week I see your name up there. Thank you so much, Kimmy. Georgina Harry, thank you, Georgina. I often see your name there, and if I don't say it each and every week, Well, there's just so many of you. I can't support all of it. So, Kerry Morks, thank you so much. One of my great customers in here today, Richard, bought a nice top. And
On you,
thank
Kerry.
you. Good on you, Kerry. See? Cherie Jones, Lynette Brock, thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for really being a part of what I love doing, and each and every week bringing you these amazing stories of people that still just go on regardless. So hopefully it will help you all out, and to know that no matter what in life, do not give up. Just know that you're going to be okay. Okay.